This program is provided by Universal Genesis.
Okay, we're about to do something a little wild. We're going to take 1,000 years of super dense philosophy and sort it. How? Well, we've got our very own Philosopher's sorting hat, and we're going to put some of history's greatest minds to the test with one simple question.
I mean, really think about it. How in the world do you make sense of 1,000 years of philosophy? We're talking from the fall of Rome all the way to the Renaissance. It's just this huge, intimidating landscape of ideas. Where do you even start? Well, turns out you don't need a PhD or a library full of books. You just need one simple question, a kind of secret key that gets right to the core of what these thinkers were really trying to do.
And here it is. This is our sorting rule. Is a thinker trying to explain how nature works, or are they telling a story about what it all means? That's it. It's that simple. And this one question splits everyone into two distinct groups. You're either on Team Reason or you're on Team Story. So, let the sorting begin.
First up, we've got the reign of Team Story, what you could call a 1,000-year dynasty. And believe me, for the first millennium or so, one of these teams wasn't just in the lead, they pretty much were the entire game.
All right, let's get into it. Our first philosopher to step up to the sorting hat is Plotinus, all the way from the 3rd century. So what was his whole deal?
So, for Plotinus, everything, and I mean everything, flows from this single divine source he called the One. He wasn't the kind of guy who was going to be, dissecting animals or mapping the stars. Nope. His entire project was about understanding the meaning structure of the world, not investigating its nuts and bolts.
You hear that? He's telling a grand story about why everything is the way it is. So, the sorting hat barely has to think about this one. The verdict is in. Plotinus, you are on Team Story.
And once Plotinus is sorted, something really interesting starts to happen. A pattern emerges, and fast. You've got Porphyry, who basically turns philosophy into a self-help guide. Then Boëthius, who sees it as therapy for your soul. And then, of course, the giant, Augustine, who gives all of human history and suffering this grand divine meaning. You see where this is going, right?
They're all asking why, not how. They're building these incredible frameworks to give life meaning. So what's the verdict for all of them? It's a no-brainer. A clean sweep for Team Story.
And this isn't just a flash in the pan. This streak goes on for centuries. I mean, look at this list. Pseudo-Dionysius says you can't even use reason to get to God, only symbols. Anselm in the 11th century, he uses logic but only to back up the faith he already has. And a century later, Abelard uses reason but just to make sure the story is internally consistent. The pattern is just locked in.
For every single one of these guys, reason is just a servant. It's a tool they use to support the bigger story they're already telling. So the sorting hat's decision is always the same. Team Story, Team Story, Team Story. It feels like their dominance is just total.
But then, just when you think it's game over, that one team is going to run the table forever, a challenger appears. Out of nowhere, after almost 1,000 years, we get a new voice, an unexpected challenger.
And his name is Albertus Magnus, Albert the Great. He's a monk, a professor, living in the 13th century, and he is about to change everything.
Okay, just listen to what he says here. For his time, this is absolutely radical. He's saying when we're studying nature, we shouldn't just throw up our hands and say it's a miracle. No, he says nature has to be explained by natural causes. He's basically building a little protected space where you can study the world for what it is, not just for what it means.
And bam, just like that, the 1,000-year streak is broken. The sorting hat is practically shouting with excitement. We finally have a new member for Team Reason. This is huge.
And this quote just nails the whole thing. Yeah, he was a monk, a man of deep faith. But, and this is the key part, in that moment, when he was looking at a plant or a star, he wasn't a priest. He was an investigator. He was explaining, not interpreted.
So, Albert's big move really sets the stage for what comes next, the Great Divide. You could even call it a final showdown between these two ways of seeing the world.
So, who's stepping up to the hat now? Oh, just Albert's most famous student ever, the one and only Thomas Aquinas. Now this is going to be interesting. His teacher was on Team Reason, but where's he going to end up?
So Aquinas pulls off this incredible balancing act. He absolutely takes reason and nature seriously. I mean, way more seriously than most people will for him. But, and it's a huge but, for him, all those roads of reason and nature, they all lead back to one place, the meaning provided by God. Everything he did ultimately served that bigger story.
So, what's the verdict? Even though he used the playbook from Team Reason, his heart, his ultimate goal was to create the most perfect, most powerful version of Team Story's worldview. He is the final boss, the perfected form of Team Story.
And that brings us to our last philosopher for today, William of Ockham from the 14th century. And let's just say he's not coming to the party empty-handed. He's armed with a razor.
And this is his famous razor. The idea is simple, but it's devastating. He basically says, cut away anything you don't absolutely need. All those big, complicated meaning structures that you can't prove or see, if they're not necessary to explain something, just get rid of them. Shave it all down to the simplest possible explanation.
I mean, this is a full frontal assault on the entire Team Story project, right? It's like taking a flamethrower to 1,000 years of intricate explanations. So yeah, the Sorting Hat doesn't hesitate for a second. This is a powerful, decisive vote for Team Reason.
And this sorting, it's more than just one more point on the board. Occam's razor is like that one loose thread on a giant, ancient tapestry. Once you pull it, the whole thing starts to unravel. A whole new way of thinking is about to begin.
All right, so after all that, after 1,000 years of sorting, what's the final score? Let's tally it up. And here are the results. Wow, it is an absolute landslide. The final score after 1,000 years, Team Story with 8 and Team Reason with just 2. It wasn't even a competition.
I mean, that's what you call total domination. For a solid millennium, the biggest game in town, really the only game in town for Western philosophy, was the search for meaning. The whole idea of just explaining how nature works, that was pushed way, way out to the margins. It was a fringe idea that barely survived.
But that leaves us with one heck of a question, doesn't it? Team Reason got absolutely crushed for 1,000 years, but it didn't die. It survived. It was waiting in the wings. So what do you think is going to happen when that underdog team finally comes roaring back into the fight?
This program is provided by Universal Genesis.